Hello internet friends, my name is Catherine and I'm the human behind Creation Misculture, and today is another Color Wheel Monday, the series in which I make my way through color theory one color at a time. So what we've done so far in this series is worked the entire primary color triangle, and we've been working our way through the secondary color triangle. So we've did the electric violet portion of the triangle, and now we're starting working on the blazing orange. So today we're going to start with adding yellow to our orange. So without further ado, let's get into this. Welcome back to Color Wheel One Day, the series in which I make my way through color theory one color at a time. So we've officially finished the electric violet. So, oh, I'm sorry, I moved you. What we're going to be working with from now on is blazing orange. So I know orange isn't everyone's cup of tea, but sometimes you can have some great color. So today we're going to be adding brilliant yellow to our orange. And so the first thing we need to do is do a stock solution. What is a stock solution? Well, it's the liquid form of our dry powder, because our dyes comes in the form of a dry powder. So we need to add water to it to create our stock solution. And in this case, we want to do a 1% stock solution. 1% is 1 gram of the dry powder with 100 milliliter of water. So this is what we're going to do, but since we're going to be working with blazing orange for a little bit, I'm going to do 3 grams for 300 milliliters. So that way I know I'm not going to run out before the end of this segment. And we're going to do that for blazing orange and brilliant is yellow. So first thing you need to do before doing your stock solution is put a respirator on, because you only have one pair of lungs and we don't want to mess with them. So protect your lungs. So we need 3 grams of blazing orange. So this is what we're going to put. Okay, good. So we've got 3 grams. Now we're going to grab 1 gram of brilliant yellow. I very rarely use brilliant yellow. There's a lot of clumps, so I feel we're going to have to work a little harder on the brilliant yellow to make sure that there's no clumps in it. And between, when you're changing your jars, make sure that you are always zeroing out your scale, so that way you can have accuracy. Okay, so I just put water in it, and it's only when it's dry powders that you must 100% of the time have your respirator on. However, once you've put some liquid in it, it's good. You can remove your respirator. Okay, it doesn't seem too bad for the clumps. It's already pretty much gone. Okay, so we can fill it to the 100 line. Here we go. And honestly, it would be easier if I had a milk frother, but I don't. And you can see that this one has a bunch of clumps at the bottom. So we're going to be working those. There we go. Perfect. Now I can go up to the 300 ml. Perfect. So the main reason why we are doing it the way we are doing it is to swatch. And color swatching is important. You can do color swatch on paper towel. However, like I've mentioned a few times on this channel, it's not always 100% accurate. The reason why it's not always accurate is because the paper towels is usually pure white because it's been bleached sometimes depending on the brand you're using, and that creates like it will give you a rough idea what it's going to look like once it's on the yarn. However, our yarn is not pure white most of the time. There is a cream color to it, and in some cases there's even like a gray tint to the yarn. So that's why um, I recommend swatching on mini skeins if it's something that's possible with your wallet, but also your space, because you end up with hundreds of mini skeins if you're doing it the same way I'm doing it. So yes, so it's very much for the accuracy that I prefer to swatch on 10-gram mini skeins. So I'm using the 10-gram mini skeins of fingering stroll from Knit Picks. I'll feel it link in the description box. You don't have to use it. It's just I'll let you know that it's there. So first thing we're going to do is add our blazing orange. Since I want the blazing orange to be our main character, I'll be putting 10 milliliter in each of the mason jars because it will give us a 1% depth of shade, and it's what I like to because I feel that when you have a 1% depth of shade, it's easy from there to judge if you need to add more of something or if you need to tone it down a little bit. So I feel like the 1% depth of shade is usually like a good compass to where you want to go with your colors. So this is why we're adding the 10 milliliter for our 10-gram mini skeins. And it's also why I prefer the metric system, because it makes life so much easier because calculations are tough sometimes for my brain. So now we're going to be adding the brilliant yellow. So we're going to do from 0.05% depth of shade over here up to 1% depth of shade over there. So that way we can see also how the colors interact with each other, but also how potent the colors can be. So here it was 2.5 milliliter. So yeah, and I'm using those specific colors because they are part of the Dharma Trading Co. Like they have starter pack basically. So you have the primary colors in it with some true black. So that's why I like to use those specific colors. So that way we can work with color theory and see where we're at and like explore, and you don't need to buy a whole lot of the colors in the first place when you have your primary colors. So now we're going to be adding our 10-gram mini skeins, and I feel like brilliant yellow is like a good support character when it comes to dyeing, because it's not overpowering, but it will create very beautiful secondary and tertiary colors. So, and it complements a lot of nice colors. So I feel like with brilliant yellow, it's going to lighten the color, but still on the warm side of it. Okay, and I'm making a mess as usual. So what we're doing with pulling it up and down like this and moving around the zip tie is opening up the skeins. So we are going to try to have an even coverage of the skeins because we have a small space, but that way we can we can ensure that there's not too much resistance in the jars. So this is why we are doing it this way. Okay. So the more movement you incorporate at the beginning, the less resist you will have, because you need to have a lot of liquid in there for the strands to not be compressed between each others. So there is roughly 350 milliliter of tap water in there. There's currently no citric acid at all in the jars. It will be added later because I like to, when I'm doing a tonal, I like to add my citric acid later, so that way we can try to have the more even coverage of the color. So now we're going to be adding those jars into the double boiler. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to turn on the heat right now. I'm going to be waiting about 10-15 minutes just so the water can warm up a little bit, and then I will be adding up the citric acid. So see you in 15. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes. So we're going to be adding the citric acid into the jars. So rule of thumb is that you would need 1 tablespoon of citric acid for 1 pound or 454 grams of your yarn or your fiber. So in this case, since we don't have a whole lot, we only have 10-gram mini skeins. Like I didn't even put a full half a teaspoon of dry powder. So and this is good. So once the temperature reaches between 85 to 95 Celsius, that's when you can start your countdown. So yeah. Oh no, what's going on here? Anyways, so what will happen is that once you reach like between 85 to 95 Celsius for the water, you count down 30 minutes to let your yarn cook. And after that, you're good to go. So we will see you in about half an hour because we're close to the 85 Celsius. Okay, so it's been half an hour. Let's see where we're at. And yep, we are good to go here. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the heat, and then we are going to let it cool completely before we're going to be washing the excess dyes off. So see you in a bit. Okay, so it's actually quite funny because I was expecting a little bit more work because of the blazing orange and the brilliant yellow in the formula we used to dye those mini skeins, but it wasn't too bad, and we didn't have any like obvious color that I could see in the mason jars, so it was quite exciting to not have to work too hard on those mini skeins. It's always a win when I don't have to wash over the same skeins of yarn forever. After that, we're going to put them in the spin dryer and let them dry overnight, and we'll be able to see the final result in just an instant. I'm just going to show you the mason jars right now, and you can see that we don't have any coloring in the jars, and I'm very happy about that. And here's the final result for adding yellow to our blazing orange. And you can see here we have a mistake. So sometimes when you are doing something like dyeing, you need to triple check that your spoon doesn't have leftover colors from another color, because this happens. So what happened is I had a little bit of blue on my spoon, and it transferred onto the water and onto the skeins, so we don't have a color accurate representation of adding yellow. However, we can see that it basically did nothing beside darken a little bit and maybe have adding a little bit more warm undertone to the colors. So if you want an orange that is brighter, add more yellow. That's all I'm going to be able to conclude from this experiment. Also, triple check that you don't have other weird colors onto your spoons before using them in any color, because you will end up with browns. It's I think it's a really nice burnt orange, but like that was not the goal of this, so it's just a cautionary tale, I guess. So if you've liked the video, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing, and I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye!